Princess Zarethis stood in the center of the cargo bay, surrounded by her people and the crew of the New Horizon. Everyone waited to hear what she would say. Jake still felt dizzy from learning that the scared alien girl he had helped was actually royalty from one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Commander Vex looked concerned about what his princess might announce. Your Highness, perhaps we should discuss this privately first. Zara raised her hand to stop him. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone born to rule, but also the warmth of someone who had learned what friendship meant. No, Commander. What I have to say must be heard by everyone. She turned to face Captain Hayes and the assembled crew members. People of the New Horizon, I want to tell you about a man named Jake Martinez. Jake felt his face turn red as everyone looked at him. He wanted to disappear, but Zara continued speaking. When Jake found me hiding in this cargo bay, he saw a hungry, frightened child. He did not know who I was or where I came from. He did not know if helping me would bring him reward or punishment. He only knew that someone needed help, and he chose to give it. Zara walked over to Jake and placed her hand on his shoulder. Jake shared his last chocolate bar with me. It was a small thing to him, but it was the first genuine kindness I had experienced in my entire life. Where I come from, people are kind to me because they want something from my family or because they fear my father's power. But Jake was kind to me because he believed it was the right thing to do. Commander Vex and the other Valdris officers listened with growing amazement. In their culture, selfless kindness was considered the highest virtue, but it was rarely seen in practice. For weeks, Jake brought me food and water. He kept me safe and warm. He taught me about human culture and treated me like family. He risked his career and his freedom to protect someone he thought was just a lost refugee child. Zara's voice grew stronger as she continued. Jake Martinez represents everything that is good and noble about humanity. Captain Hayes stepped forward. Princess, we are honored by your words, but Jake did break regulations by harboring an unauthorized alien aboard our vessel. Zara turned to face the captain with a smile that was both gentle and commanding. Captain Hayes, Jake Martinez did not harbor an unauthorized alien. He protected a member of the Valdris royal family. In our culture, such protection is considered a sacred duty and brings great honor to the protector. Commander Vex nodded solemnly. The princess speaks truth. By our laws, Jake Martinez has performed the highest service possible. He protected royal blood without thought of reward. Zara looked back at Jake, whose face showed complete confusion about what was happening. Jake, you gave me something more. Precious than chocolate that first day. You gave me hope that there were still good people in the universe. You showed me what real friendship looked like. She turned to address both crews again. Because of Jake's kindness, I learned what kind of leader I want to be when I inherit my father's throne. I want to rule with the same compassion and selflessness that Jake showed to a stranger. This lesson is worth more than all the political education I received in the royal palace. Commander Vex stepped forward and bowed to Jake, who was too shocked to respond. Jake Martinez of Earth, by the authority granted to me by Emperor Thandros, I formally recognize you as a friend of the Valdris Empire, entitled to all honors and protections that title provides. What does that mean exactly? Captain Hayes asked. Princess Zara smiled. It means that Jake Martinez is now under the personal protection of the Valdris royal family. It means that any ship bearing his name will have safe passage through all Valdris space. It means that the friendship between our peoples begins with the friendship between Jake and myself. Jake finally found his voice. Princess, I don't understand. I just gave you a chocolate bar. Yes, Zara said softly. You gave me a chocolate bar when you could have reported me to security. You brought me food when you could have ignored my hunger. You treated me with kindness when you could have been cruel. You did all this for someone you thought could never repay you. That is why you are the most honorable person I have ever met. Commander Vex addressed Captain Hayes. Captain, the princess has requested that the Valdris Empire establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity. She believes that any species capable of producing someone like Jake Martinez deserves our friendship and alliance. Captain Hayes could hardly believe what she was hearing. Commander, this is far beyond my authority to negotiate. Such decisions would need to be made by Earth's government. Of course, Commander Vex agreed. But the Prince's wishes to make. Jake Martinez, the first human ambassador to the Valgers Empire. If he accepts, he would serve as the bridge between our peoples as we develop these new relationships. Jake looked around at all the faces staring at him. I'm just a supply technician. I don't know anything about being an ambassador. Princes. Zara took his hands in hers again. Jake, you know the most important thing about being an ambassador. You know how to treat others with kindness and respect, no matter who they are or where they come from. That is the foundation of all good diplomacy. Amy Foster, who had been watching everything in amazement, stepped forward. Jake, do you realize what this means? You're being offered the chance to represent all of humanity to an advanced alien civilization. Jake looked at Princess Zara. What about you? Will you have to marry that person you don't love? Zara smiled. My experience with you has taught me to be brave. I will return home and tell my father that I choose my own path. I will marry someone I love when I am ready, not when politics demands it. The friendship you showed me gave me the courage to stand up for myself. Commander Vex added, the princess has convinced her father that political marriages are less important than alliances built on genuine respect and friendship. Your influence on her has already changed Valdres. Policy. Captain Hayes shook her head in wonder. Jake, you shared a chocolate bar and accidentally started a diplomatic revolution. Princess Zara reached into her pocket and pulled out the wrapper from Jake's chocolate bar. She had kept it all these weeks, and now it was carefully preserved, like a precious artifact. This wrapper will be displayed in the Valdres Royal Museum as a symbol of the friendship between our peoples. Future generations will learn about the human who showed kindness to a stranger and changed the course of galactic history. Jake stared at the chocolate wrapper that he had given no thought to weeks ago. I can't believe that sharing my lunch led to all this. The best actions always start small, Princess Zara said. You proved that humans judge people by their character, not their status. You showed that your species values compassion over profit. These are the qualities we want in our allies. As preparations began for Jake's new role as ambassador and Princess Zara's return to her empire, the crew of the New Horizon realized they had witnessed something extraordinary. A simple act of kindness had opened the door to friendship between civilizations. Jake Martinez had given away his last chocolate bar to help someone in need, never knowing that this small gesture would make him the most important diplomat in human history. And Princess Zara had learned that true nobility came not from royal blood, but from the courage to show kindness to others, no matter who they might be. The alarm bells on the New Horizon had never sounded so loud or urgent. Jake was in the middle of his morning inventory when the red alert signal began blaring throughout the ship. Emergency lights flashed in the cargo bay as Captain Hayes' voice came over the intercom. All crew to emergency stations immediately. We have multiple unknown vessels approaching. This is not a drill. Jake's first thought was of Zara. He dropped his datapad and ran toward her hiding spot. But before he could reach her, Chief Engineer Pete Collins appeared in the cargo bay doorway. Martinez, get to your emergency station now, Pete barked. Captain wants all non-essential personnel secured. Jake had no choice but to follow orders, but his mind was racing with worry about Zara. He hoped she would stay hidden and safe until this crisis passed. On the bridge, Captain Hayes stared at the view screen in amazement. Surrounding the New Horizon were at least 20 massive alien vessels, each one larger and more elegant than anything in the human fleet. The ships seemed to have appeared from nowhere, decloaking simultaneously in perfect formation. How did they get so close without us detecting them? Captain Hayes demanded. Tony Blake, The communications officer was working frantically at his station. Their stealth technology is beyond anything we've seen before, Captain. These ships are incredibly advanced. The alien vessels made no aggressive moves, but their presence was overwhelming. They maintained a respectful distance, while clearly demonstrating that the new horizon was completely surrounded and outmatched. Captain, Tony reported, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. They're requesting permission to come aboard. Captain Hayes felt her heart pounding. First contact situations were always dangerous, especially when the aliens clearly had superior technology. Put them through, she ordered. The view screen flickered and showed the interior of the alien flagship. A tall, imposing figure stepped forward. His skin was the same pale blue as Zara's, but darker, and he wore elaborate clothing that suggested high rank. When he spoke, his English was perfect but formal. Greetings, human vessel New Horizon. I am Commander Vex of the Valdris Imperial Fleet. We come in peace, seeking the return of someone very precious to us who may be aboard your ship. Captain Hayes tried to keep her voice steady. I am Captain Hayes. Commander Vex, we have no record of any Valdris citizens aboard our vessel. Perhaps there has been some mistake. Commander Vex's expression remained serious but polite. Captain Hayes, we have been tracking your ship for many days. Our instruments detect the presence of someone we have been searching for across many star systems. We request permission to board your vessel to verify this person's safety. Captain Hayes looked around at her bridge crew. They were clearly outgunned and had no choice but to cooperate. Permission granted, Commander? But I must warn you that we have found no unauthorized persons aboard this ship. As the alien delegation prepared to board, Jake was trying desperately to find a way to reach Zara. He knew that when the aliens searched the ship, they would definitely find her. He had to warn her and help her prepare for whatever was about to happen. Amy Foster was in her laboratory, staring at Zara's test results and thinking about the connection between the alien girl's mineral traces and the sudden appearance of this advanced fleet. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together in a way that made her realize how wrong they had all been about Zara's true identity. Down in the cargo bay, Zara was no longer hiding. She stood in the open area between the containers, her back straight and her chin raised. The frightened refugee girl was gone, replaced by someone who carried herself with unmistakable authority and dignity. Jake finally managed to slip away from his emergency station and reach the cargo bay. He stopped in shock. Zara looked completely different, not just in her posture, but in her entire presence. She seemed older, more serious, and somehow more important than the scared child he had been protecting. Zara, Jake whispered, you have to hide. There are alien ships surrounding us, and they're coming aboard to search for someone. Zara turned to look at Jake with sad but determined eyes. Jake, my friend, they search for me. It is time for truth. Before Jake could ask what she meant, the cargo bay doors opened and Captain Hayes entered with Commander Vex and several other Valdris officers. The moment they saw Zara, their reaction was immediate and profound. All of the Valdris delegation dropped to one knee and bowed their heads respectfully. Commander Vex spoke in their musical language, and Zara responded in the same tongue with clear authority in her voice. Your Highness, Commander Vex said in English, the entire Empire has been searching for you. Your father, the Emperor, is beside himself with worry. Jake felt the world spinning around him. Your Highness? He repeated weakly. Zara walked over to Jake and took his hands in hers. When she spoke, her English was suddenly much better than it had ever been before, as if she had been hiding her true abilities. Jake, I'm tell you who I really am. My name is Princess Zarathis of the Valdris Empire. I am the daughter of Emperor Thandros, ruler of one of the most powerful civilizations in this galaxy. Captain Hayes stared in shock. You're royalty? But you were hiding in our cargo bay like a stowaway. Zara nodded, still holding Jake's hands. I ran away from my home because my father wanted me to marry someone I did not love for political reasons. I wanted to see the galaxy and experience freedom before accepting my duties as a princess. I never meant to cause so much trouble. Jake felt like his legs might give out. But you were hungry and scared, and your clothes were torn. I had been hiding on different ships for weeks before I reached yours, Zara explained gently. I made myself look poor so no one would suspect who I really was. But Jake, you were the first person who was kind to me not because of my title or my family's power, but simply because you saw someone who needed help. Commander Vex stepped forward. Your Highness, when you disappeared, your father sent the entire Third Fleet to search for you. We have been following this human vessel for days, waiting for the right moment to make contact. Captain Hayes found her voice. Princess, we had no idea. If we had known ... Zara shook her head. You would have treated me differently. You would have been afraid, or you would have tried to use me for political gain. But Jake, she turned back. To him with tears in her eyes, Jake gave me his last chocolate bar because he thought I was hungry. He risked his career to keep me safe because he believed I needed protection. He taught me about friendship and kindness without knowing that I could make him rich or powerful. Jake was still trying to process everything. So the crystal palaces and golden ships you talked about, all real, Zara said softly. My home is the most beautiful world in the Valger's Empire. But none of that beauty meant anything to me until I learned what real kindness looked like. You showed me that, Jake. Commander. Vex spoke again. Princess, your father commands you to return home immediately. The Empire needs you, and there are many political situations that require your attention. Zara straightened her shoulders, and when she spoke, everyone could hear the royal authority in her voice. I will return home, Commander. But first, I have something very important to say to these humans. Dr. Amy Foster was having a strange week. As the New Horizons xenobiologist, she was responsible for studying alien life forms and monitoring the ship for any unusual biological readings. For the past few days, her sensors have been picking up odd energy patterns from the cargo bay area. The readings were faint, but definitely there, like a biological signature that did not belong to any known crew member. Amy checked her equipment twice to make sure it was working properly. The readings were consistent and seemed to be coming from the same general location each time. She decided to investigate personally rather than file a report that might turn out to be nothing more than sensor malfunction. She made her way to the cargo bay during the evening shift when fewer people would be around. Amy carried her portable scanner and moved slowly between the containers, following the energy readings. The signal grew stronger as she approached Section C7, and then she heard voices. Amy stopped and listened carefully. One voice was definitely Jake Martinez, the supply technician she knew by sight. But the other voice was higher and spoke with an accent she did not recognize. Moving quietly, Amy followed the sound until she could see around the corner of a large container. What she saw made her gasp. Jake was sitting on the floor, talking to a young alien girl. The girl had pale blue skin and silver hair, and she was clearly not human. Amy watched as Jake handed the girl what looked like a piece of fruit, and the girl smiled and said something in broken English. Amy's scientific mind immediately began analyzing what she was seeing. The girl appeared to be a previously unknown alien species, possibly a juvenile based on her size and behavior. This was an incredible discovery, but it was also a serious violation of ship regulations. No unauthorized aliens were allowed aboard human vessels. Amy knew she should report this immediately to Captain Hayes. But as she watched Jake and the alien girl interact, she saw something that made her pause. The way Jake treated the girl was gentle and caring, like an older brother looking after his sister. The girl seemed happy and healthy, not like a dangerous stowaway or security threat. Instead of calling security, Amy stepped forward and cleared her throat softly. Both Jake and the alien girl looked up in surprise and fear. Please don't be afraid, Amy said quickly, holding up her hands. I'm not going to hurt anyone. Jake scrambled to his feet, his face pale with worry. Dr. Foster, I can explain ... I'm... Sure you can, Amy said calmly. But first, I'd like to meet your friend here. The alien girl had pressed herself against the wall, looking ready to run. Jake put a protective hand on her shoulder. This is Zara, Jake said quietly. Zara, this is Dr. Foster. She's a scientist, but she's nice. Amy knelt down to Zara's level, the same way Jake had done weeks earlier. Hello, Zara. I'm Amy. I study different kinds of life forms, including people like you. Zara looked at Jake uncertainly, then back at Amy. You tell Captain? She asked in her careful English. Not right now, Amy said. I'd like to learn more about you first, if that's okay. Over the next hour, Amy listened as Jake explained how he had found Zara and why he had decided to help her. Amy asked Zara gentle questions about her health and background, being careful not to frighten her. As a scientist, Amy was fascinated by this opportunity to study a new alien species. But as a person, she was moved by the obvious bond between Jake and Zara. Jake, I need to examine her properly, Amy told him, with medical equipment. Can you bring her to my lab tomorrow night? Jake looked worried. Is she sick? Is something wrong? I don't think so, Amy said. But I want to make sure she's healthy, and I want to learn more about her species. It will help us take better care of her. The next evening, Jake brought Zara to Amy's laboratory. Amy had prepared a comfortable area with soft lighting, so Zara would not be scared by all the medical equipment. She ran several tests, taking small samples of Zara's hair and skin cells for analysis. What Amy discovered made her very confused. The test results showed that Zara's cellular structure contained traces of rare minerals that were found only in the wealthiest parts of known space. These minerals were so expensive that only the richest civilizations could afford to have them in their environment regularly. Amy ran the test again to make sure she had not made a mistake. The results were the same. According to the mineral traces in Zara's body, she came from a world of incredible wealth and luxury, not the war-torn planet Jake had described. Jake, Amy said carefully, are you sure Zara told you she was a refugee? Jake nodded. She said bad things happened on her world, and she had to run away. She talks about destroyed palaces and broken ships. Amy looked at the test results again. Something did not add up. These mineral traces suggest she comes from a very wealthy world, the kind of place where only royalty or extremely rich families would live. Jake laughed. That's impossible. Look at her clothes. Look at how thin she was when I found her. She's obviously been living rough for weeks. Amy had to admit that Zara certainly looked like a refugee. But the scientific evidence was clear. She decided not to push the issue for now, but she made a mental note to investigate further. Meanwhile, Zara was becoming more anxious as the days passed. She started asking Jake more questions about where the ship was going and how long it would take to reach their destination. When Jake showed her star charts on his datapad, Zara would study them intensely and shake her head. We go wrong way, she told Jake one night. I need go to Council of Stars. Very important. People wait for me. Jake tried to comfort her. We'll find a way to get you there, Zara. Maybe at our next stop we can find a ship going in the right direction. But Zara's anxiety continued to grow. She started talking more about needing to reach the big ship with stars and about people who would be looking for her. Jake assumed she meant her family, but something about the way she talked made it sound more urgent and important than just a family reunion. On the bridge, Captain Hayes was dealing with her own mystery. The ship's communications officer, Tony Blake, had been reporting strange long-range signals for several days. The signals were in an unknown language and seemed to be scanning different frequencies, like someone was searching for something. Captain, Tony reported during the morning. Briefing, these signals are definitely artificial. Someone out there is looking for something, and they're using very advanced technology to do it. Captain Hayes frowned. The signals were not threatening, but they were persistent. Any idea what they might be looking for? No, ma'am, Tony replied. But whatever it is, they really want to find it. Captain Hayes ordered the crew to maintain their current course but increase security protocols. She had no way of knowing that the answer to the mystery was hiding in their own cargo bay. Growing more worried each day about reaching her destination, Amy continued her research on Zara, becoming more convinced that there was much more to the alien girl's story than anyone realized. The mineral traces in her system suggested a background of incredible wealth and privilege, but Zara's behavior and appearance suggested the opposite. As the New Horizon traveled deeper into unexplored space, 3 separate mysteries were converging toward a revelation that would change everything for everyone aboard the ship. Jake kept his promise to Zara. Every night after his shift ended, he would sneak down to the cargo bay with food and water. He brought her sandwiches from the mess hall, fruit cups, and sometimes even cookies when the kitchen staff made extras. Zara was always grateful, and her English got better every day. During their talks, Jake learned more about Zara's background. She told him stories about her home world called Valdris Prime. The way she described it made Jake think of a planet torn apart by war. She spoke of crystal palaces that had been destroyed and golden ships that no longer flew. Jake felt sorry for her because it sounded like she had lost everything. My home very beautiful, Zara would say with sad eyes. Big towers touch sky, water like diamonds, but bad things happen. I had to run away. Jake assumed she meant that war or disaster had forced her family to flee. Many refugee children had similar stories. He never pushed her for details because he could see it made her upset to think about it. As the weeks passed, Jake noticed that Zara was much smarter than he had first thought. She learned new English words incredibly fast, seemed to understand things about the ship that surprised him. One night, she asked him about the humming sound the engines made. Why does Big Metal Bird sing different song tonight? She asked. Jake listened and realized she was right. The engine pitch had changed slightly because they were adjusting course. He had been working on ships for years and barely noticed such small changes, but Zara had picked it up immediately. You have good ears, Jake told her. The engines sound different because we're turning toward a new star system. Zara nodded thoughtfully. On my world, we listen to ship songs too. Different. Songs mean different things. Jake found this interesting because it suggested her people had advanced space travel, but that did not match with her appearance as a poor refugee. He decided she was probably talking about stories her parents had told her. The hardest part of Jake's day was dealing with his supervisor, Chief Engineer Pete Collins. Pete was a mean man who seemed to enjoy making Jake's job difficult. He would give Jake extra work for no reason and criticize everything he did. When Jake came back from these encounters feeling frustrated, Zara always seemed to know. Jake said, "Today," she would observe, "bad man make trouble again?" Jake was amazed at how well she could read his moods. Yeah, Pete was being his usual charming self, Jake would say, and Zara would nod like she understood exactly what he meant. To cheer him up, Zara started making small gifts from the scraps and discarded materials she found in the cargo bay. She had an incredible talent for creating beautiful things from junk. She made Jake a small sculpture from twisted metal that looked like a bird in flight. Another time, she wove together colorful wires to create a bracelet that caught the light. In amazing ways. Where did you learn to make such beautiful things? Jake asked her one night. My people always make pretty things, Zara said simply. We believe beauty makes sadness go away. Jake treasured every gift she gave him. He kept them in his quarters and looked at them when he had bad days. They reminded him that there was still kindness and beauty in the universe. In return, Jake taught Zara about human culture. He showed her pictures of Earth on his datapad, pointing out the blue oceans and green forests. Zara was fascinated by everything she saw. Your world very pretty too, she said. Like my home, but different colors. Jake told her about his hometown in Arizona, describing the red rocks and wide open spaces. He explained human holidays and customs, and Zara listened to every word with great interest. She was especially curious about families and how humans raise their children. On Valdris, children learn many things, Zara told him. We study stars and songs and how to speak with many different people, but we not learn about friendship like this. Jake was touched by her words. He had grown very fond of Zara during their time together. She was like the little sister he had never had. He worried about what would happen when they reached their next stop, and she tried to find passage to wherever she was going. Zara also taught Jake some words in her own language. The sounds were musical and flowing, very different from English. She taught him how to say hello, goodbye, and thank you. When Jake tried to pronounce the words, Zara would giggle at his accent, but she was always patient and encouraging. Jake, speak Valdris like baby bird learning to sing, she would tease gently. But baby birds become beautiful singers with practice. One thing that puzzled Jake was how sophisticated Zara's knowledge seemed to be. When she described Valdris customs, they sounded very advanced and complex. She spoke of councils and ceremonies and traditions that seemed to belong to a highly developed civilization. But this did not match with her refugee status and poor appearance. Jake decided that maybe her people had been advanced before whatever disaster struck their world. Many civilizations had fallen throughout galactic history, leaving behind only memories of better times. The New Horizon continued its journey through space, mapping new star systems and collecting scientific data. Captain Lisa Hayes ran a tight ship and kept everyone busy with their duties. Jake was careful to maintain his normal routine, so no one would suspect anything unusual. Sometimes, Jake felt guilty about hiding Zara from the authorities. He knew he was breaking regulations and could get in serious trouble if she was discovered. But every time he saw her grateful smile or watched her eyes light up when he brought her a new treat from the mess hall, he knew he was doing the right thing. Zara never complained about living in the small hidden space. She kept it clean and organized, and she never made noise during the day when other crew members might be around. Jake was impressed by her discipline and maturity. She was just a child, but she acted very responsible. As their friendship grew stronger, Jake began to feel like Zara was family. He looked forward to their evening visits and worried about her during the day. He had never expected that sharing a chocolate bar with a stranger would lead to such a deep connection. But life had a way of surprising people. Neither Jake nor Zara knew that far behind them in space, massive ships were following the New Horizon's path through the stars, searching for something very precious that they had lost. Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the cargo bay of the New Horizon. The ship hummed quietly around him as it traveled through deep space. Jake had been working as a supply technician for 3 years now, and he knew every corner of his vessel. His job was simple but important. Keep track of all the supplies and make sure everything was where it should be. The cargo bay was his favorite place to work because it was usually quiet and peaceful. Most crew members avoided this area unless they had to be there. Jake liked the solitude and the way his footsteps echoed softly in the large space. Today he was doing his weekly inventory check, something he had done hundreds of times before. Moved between the tall metal containers, checking serial numbers against his datapad. Everything seemed normal until he heard a small sound coming from behind container section 100-7. Jake stopped walking and listened carefully. There was again a soft rustling noise like someone trying to move without being heard. Jake felt his heart beat faster. No one was supposed to be in this area right now. He thought about calling security, but something made him pause. The sound was too quiet and careful to be dangerous. Instead of reaching for his communicator, Jake slowly walked toward the noise. Behind the containers, he found a small space that he had never really looked at before. Someone had made a tiny hiding spot using old supply boxes and a torn piece of fabric. And there, curled up in the corner, was a young alien girl. She looked up at Jake with large, frightened eyes. Her skin was pale blue and she had silver hair that fell in tangles around her thin face. She wore clothes that were dirty and torn, and Jake could see that she was very thin, like she had not eaten well in a long time. She pressed herself against the wall, as if trying to disappear. Jake held up his hands to show he meant no harm. "Hey there," he said softly. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The girl said something in a language Jake did not understand. Her voice was small and scared. She looked ready to run, but there was nowhere for her to go. Jake slowly knelt down, so he would not seem so tall and threatening. "Do you speak English?" he asked gently. The girl nodded but said nothing. Jake could see she was shaking, whether from fear or cold he could not tell. Maybe both. "What's your name?" Jake asked. "Zara," she whispered so quietly he almost did not hear her. "Hi, Zara. I'm Jake." He tried to smile in a way that would make her feel safe. "Are you hungry?" Zara nodded quickly, and Jake's heart went out to her. She was just a kid, and she was obviously in trouble. He knew he should report her to Captain Hayes right away. Having unauthorized aliens on the ship was against every regulation in the book. But looking at this scared, hungry child, Jake just could not bring himself to do it. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a chocolate bar. It was his last one, and he had been saving it for weeks. Chocolate was hard to come by in space, and Jake usually made his treats last as long as possible. But Zara needed it more than he did. "Here," he said, holding out the bar. "This is chocolate. It's food. It tastes good." Zara looked at the chocolate bar like she had never seen anything like it before. She reached out slowly and took it from Jake's hand. Her fingers were cold and thin. "Go ahead," Jake encouraged her. "You can eat it." Zara carefully unwrapped the chocolate and took a small bite. Her eyes went wide with surprise, and then she smiled for the first time since Jake had found her. She ate the rest of the bar quickly, like someone who had not had a real meal in days. "Good?" Jake asked. "Good," Zara repeated, and her voice was a little stronger now. "Thank you." Jake sat down on the floor, so he would be at her level. "Zara, how did you get on this ship?" She looked confused by the question and said something in her own language. Then she tried again in English. I hide when ship stops. I need go to big ship with stars." Jake guessed she meant another vessel. Maybe her family was on a different ship and she was trying to reach them. The New Horizon had stopped at Kepler Station 2 weeks ago. She must have snuck aboard then. "Where is your family?" Jake asked. Zara's face became sad. "Far away. I run away. Need find big ship with stars. Very important." Jake felt sorry for her. She was just a child who had gotten separated from her family somehow. He knew he should turn her into the authorities. But something about her reminded him of his little sister back on Earth. Besides, what harm could one small alien girl do? "Okay, Zara," Jake said finally. "I'm going to help you. But you have to stay hidden. Can you do that?" Zara nodded eagerly. "I hide good. No one see me." Jake looked around the small space she had made for herself. It was not much, but it was well hidden. "I'll bring you food and water," he promised. "But you have to stay here during the day when other people might come around. Can you promise me that?" "I promise," Zara said solemnly. Jake stood up and looked down at the alien girl. He was probably making the biggest mistake of his career, but he could not abandon a child in need. His grandmother had always taught him that kindness was the most important thing a person could offer to the world. "I'll be back tonight with some real food," Jake told her. "Will you be okay until then?" Zara nodded and settled back into her makeshift bed. "Jake is a good person," she said quietly. "Like chocolate." Jake smiled despite himself. He had just shared his last chocolate bar with a complete stranger, and somehow it felt like the right thing to do. As he walked away from Zara's hiding spot, Jake wondered what he had gotten himself into. But when he thought about those big, frightened eyes and how happy she had looked when she tasted the chocolate, he knew he would do it again. The New Horizon continued its journey through space. carrying its crew and one secret passenger toward an unknown destiny. In the cargo bay, a young alien girl named Zara fell asleep, clutching an empty chocolate wrapper, the first gift of kindness she had received in longer than she could remember.